So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. This is our very first Narrative for Artist Network workshop, what we hope will be an ongoing series this year. And it is my honor and privilege to introduce you to our guest artist, Babalwa Tetyana, who started out, I love seeing the applause, silent applause. Many of you know Babalwa. She started out with Narrative 4 when she was a teenager. She's a recent graduate of Sarah Lawrence. She's an incredible poet, and we are so happy to have her here leading our first artist workshop. So I'm going to turn this over to her, Babalwa, and I'm going to try to pin her so you all can see.
Right. Thank you so much, Felice. Hello, everyone. Greetings from everywhere. I am Babalwa Tetyana. One thing that's bringing me joy right now, I will say, is seeing all of your faces and seeing how much everybody loves poetry. That's bringing me joy at the moment. Welcome. Again, I am Babalwa Tetyana. I was born and raised in South Africa. I was raised in the small township of Joe Slovo in South Africa. I started writing poetry, I would say around the age of 13. I was in 8th grade. But before that, I fell in love with words because of my mother. I remember growing up, my mom would listen to R&B music all the time, and my dad hated it. Sorry, Dad, but he hated it so much. I remember he would say, "Can you please play something a little bit more upbeat? Like, this is too slow." And my mom would always say, "Listen to the words." And as a young child, I listened to that and I started listening to the words, even though at times I didn't know what they meant because I could not speak English at the time. I don't know what Judy Boucher was saying. I don't know what Celine Dion was saying, but I started listening to those words. And I went from doing that to actually collecting my favorite lyrics from songs that I did not know what meant. And that collection, I wish I could find where that book is, but I started collecting those lyrics. And then that went from collecting lyrics to myself making sense of the world around me. I started using writing as a way to make sense of the world around me, of trying to, oh, thank you. I started using it as a way to give myself a voice, to share what was in my mind at the time that I couldn't talk to anyone about, because also I did grow up in an environment where as a child, you don't question what you are being told by adults. If an adult is telling you something, you can't question it, you just take it as like that. And so writing started being that way, it started being the tool that I use to express my own feelings, to express my thoughts and everything. I know love. I'm from the warm hands of a Xhosa woman that dripped blood yet still built a magnificent person in me. I'm from the presence of a father who ran with open wounds under his bare feet, stood on burning coal to claim me life. Mama and Dada. The struggle made you Charity and Theophilus, for the British and the Dutch could not wrap his tongue around your real names, Pumza and Simpiwe. We were forced to believe Nelson was worth more than Rolihlahla. You brought me to a world where Babalwa would have to fight to prove equal worth with the name Grace. I'm from siblings who chose to eat on the same bowl with the same spoon while several dishes remained filthy in the kitchen sink. Not one hand felt the need to express gratitude. I'm from a township where love is the neighbors dancing across the street with hands clenching glasses of hard liquor. Happiness is a visiting butterfly. Sometimes I wish you would visit more and stay a little bit longer. Do not ask me questions when you see my eyes bottling tears. I was taught to swallow them. I'm from a township where everything is a toy from rocks, mud, wood, cardboard, broken glass and plates. I do not wish I had screens to keep my eyes glued to all day. I do not know boredom. I know creativity. And yes, we didn't bother to write letters to Santa Claus begging for toys. He would never look down to hear our desperate voices, so we watched the empty skies instead. Santa only stops in white people's homes, my brother would always tell me. I'm of a township where hope for salvation lingers in the eyes of a child like a lifeless leaf refusing to fall. We learn to cry silently before holding our spoons. Numbing wounds beyond skin has become the way of life. I'm of a township where it is nothing much until boiled emotions explode like a raging soda can in fire. It is nothing much. Her 13-year-old spine is bending backwards to support the life developing in her womb. It is nothing much. Last night, her lights never turned on. It's still nothing much. Young men standing at a door of a shop begging for 50 cents to help them escape. It is nothing much. He is 21 and in 10th grade. It is nothing much. It is nothing much is a chorus we all know how to move to. When someone asks about your pain, smile and say, "Are you doing gahako?" Thank you. While walking down Wyckoff Street, I heard a child screaming and was reminded of how tomorrow keeps passing by, calling to me. My bed is absorbing the living out of me. It leaves me soullessly alive in the space between my lips at yon Danez Road. There, I knew how to swim, but couldn't. Can I? 2 years into the pandemic, I have lost myself. I am now a motherless daughter with prayers that have turned into, "Dear God, you know my heart." Even I am failing to understand the purpose of this beating heart. Maybe I'm expecting too much of God at this point. I mean, too much of myself. I have lost the ability to ungrave myself from this self-portrait my body has painted on my sheets. How do I ask him to unshame me, unache my body from this nothingful pain? God, can you be the fire in my marrowless bones? I don't need salvation. I had mastered the art of uncrucifying myself every day so I could enter crowded spaces with my head held high. Can you remind me of who I am? Yolanda tells me God does not put you in obstacles you cannot handle. When does this handling end? Thank you. I have a few community guidelines and norms that I would like for us to think about as we use this space today. And one of them would be, I would love for everyone to be fully here today, be present and engaged, minimize all kinds of distractions around you. Please be respectful of the space when people are sharing. Maybe not everyone here is a poet. Please be respectful of what they are sharing. Maybe this is your first time writing in a very long time, and when you are sharing, it would be great that if we are all here and listening to you and giving your art and giving your work the respect that it deserves. And again, we are all human beings. So whatever is happening, please know that this is not the moment to be perfect. This is not the moment. We are not putting a spotlight on anyone. This is for you to take some time to write. This is for us to dive deep into our writing and strengthen our writing in a sense. Personal poem is a poem where the author or the writer is writing in the voice of someone else or something else. And usually it has the voice that is used has a direct message that it wants to convey. And usually speaking to a very specific group of audience or a very specific listener or someone. So today, I will read an example of a personal poem that I've written myself. And when I do that, I want you to think about the assumed voice and the person that the poem is written through. And I want you to think about the direct address and identify it. I want you to think about what the voice is saying and also who this voice may be and what and who the voice is speaking to. Words from a resting mother, Babalwa Tetyana. Later today, I will feed on the rice you brought to me. Taste the salt of your prayerful tears absorbed by the soil that lets me feel your vibration. I remember the first time I held you at that hospital bed. Your little voice filled my heart more than the room as you screamed to take your first breath. I placed your head full of hair on my chest. We became one at the merging of our hearts and our heartbeat. Your grandmother once told me, there is no joy greater than one brought by bearing daughters. I wish you could jump in at times, baptize your troubles away in me, the same way you used to bury your face at the seam of my skirt when your brothers frustrated you. Remember how you'd let yourself go in my arms. If I could, I would have stayed a little longer. I wish you could understand I fought every day until I found my spirit flowing peacefully in the waters I became. The birds you feed rice at sunrise. Tell me you are searching for me in the cotton forming the wall of my knitted scarf. Honey, stand in front of the mirror 5 seconds longer. Listen to yourself. A little harder, and you will find me in the echoes of your voice belting our favorite songs. Thank you. So that was my persona poem. That was a persona poem that I wrote. Again, if we'd go back, I would like for us to go back to the questions that I asked you, and I asked that we listen to the voice, what it's trying to say, and also who the speaker may be. Does anyone have anything to share from those questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and because I can't see all of you. So the questions again are, what do you notice about the direct address that the voice that is conveying, and also who the message may be to, and also what pieces, what makes this voice strong for you? Okay, I see messages coming in. Phyllis, would you mind reading the what people are putting in the chat box for me?
Of course. So Margaret said, as a mother of daughters, I am close to this poem. My daughters are birthing daughters too. I hear myself. And then Rachel said this message was to a daughter.
Yes.
And Anne adds, this is the mother talking to her daughter. Did they get it?
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
Exactly. Thank you so much. That is very true. So that was a poem I took on my mother's voice at a time when I really wanted to hear her, but could not. And so that is also another way that you can use a persona poem when you know the message you want to hear from somebody, but don't have access to that person. That's also another way of using a persona poem. And I have a second poem that I'm going to read, and this one is not by myself. This one is by Langston Hughes, and the title of this poem is Mother to Son. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stay. It's had text in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, I've been climbing on, and reaching landings, and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps, 'cause you find it's kinda hard. Don't you fall now, for I's still going, honey. I's still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stay. Feel free to add in the chat box, excuse me, your answers.
All right, and I will read some of them. So we have Rahima, mother to son, emphasizing the importance of not giving up and that life has much difficulty. Jahi, direct address, a mother trying to encourage her son who may be feeling weary or despondent. Langston Hughes uses imagery to create a scene of hardship and discomfort. Parts where the voice feels strongest, the return to life ain't been no crystal stair. So that repetition follows a call to keep going and pushing on. Alex says the voice is strongest at the don't give up part. Margaret shares, I love how the metaphor of stairs is used throughout. Melanie highlights the repetition of a crystal stair. And Valerie says, mother shares that life hasn't been easy, but she's always reaching, and son shouldn't give up even if she suffers. Shoshana, mother to son, revealing of her own struggles and persistence and encouraging her son not to give up, to forge ahead. And Rachel says, what I get from the poem, the mother is reminding the son that difficulties are no reason to give up.
Amazing.
Oh, one more last comment from Amy. To me, the voice is strongest at this section. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps, because you find it's kind of harder. Don't you fall now.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Yes, those are all great answers. Excuse me, you all have it. And yes, there are other elements of There are other elements that make poetry stronger, like imagery, rhyme, repetition, and all of that. And so I'm about to ask you to go write your own personal poem. In doing so, I also want you to think of those elements, bring them in. And also, because this is going to be a personal poem, I want you to, here's the prompt. Again, I just want to express how grateful I am that everyone has taken the time to be here today. I hope that you live today with a different appreciation for persona poems. And I hope that you've learned the value of the loudest silent voices, because they speak the loudest and they have the most stories to tell. I'm sorry to say it, but they do. And I also hope that you will take time to, again, listen to everything that's around you and continue to give it a voice and continue to write personal poems and continue to write all kinds of poems, write anything that you would like to write. And I also encourage you to take time when you notice something to just note it, write it down. You don't have to write a poem. Just take notes of it, write it down. At some point in life, you'll go back to it and meet it somewhere. And that will be your piece of artwork at that moment. Because sometimes when you want to write but you don't really know what to write about, just taking note of it is a great thing to do, because it helps so much when you are actually writing, because now you're meeting the poem somewhere, you're meeting your piece of art somewhere. Thank you. Hi, thank you so much, Margaret, for that question. I don't have a daily practice that helps me create a voice specifically, but I do have a daily practice that I do that helps with my writing, and though that's basically doing observations. Normally, well, for the past month, almost 3 months now, I've been without headphones or earbuds, and that's so that I can listen to what is going on at all times, because I strongly believe, again, silence speaks very, very loud. And so I've been taking notes of my observations. Whatever I note at that moment, I would just write it down, and also what I see. And also when talking to people at times, I would write down whatever I notice about them that day, maybe like the new hairstyle they have, or maybe like a freckle that I didn't know and that I had never noticed before. I also do jot down what I hear, like things that people say, because also in my writing, some of the things that I usually do is put down a quote of what somebody has said before, if it connects to the poem. And then at times, maybe if I want to travel to a different place in the poem, I can easily go back to my observations, to the list of observations that I have, and write about maybe a different place than the one that I'm writing about at that moment. So I will say on a daily basis, I am always just observing what is happening in the space, what is being said, things that I hear, also the smells. One thing now that I'm venturing into is taste. So whatever I'm eating now, I always like just try to feel what the food feels like and where it's hitting the most. And the funniest thing is, yesterday I just had ice cream from kitchen, and I've never, when eating, noticed the top of my mouth, my palate. And for the first time yesterday, I was paying attention to what my palate felt like, which has never happened before. So it's just small things like that that I do that help with my writing.